A drunk woman challenged Kurt Cobain on stage. What he did next stunned 30,000 people. Buenos Aires, Argentina, October 30th, 1992, 11:47 p.m. The air inside Estadio Vélez Sarsfield was thick with sweat, smoke, and electricity. 30,000 bodies pressed against each other, screaming lyrics they barely understood in English. United by something bigger than language, Nirvana was 3 songs into their set. Kurt Cobain's blonde hair whipped violently as he tore through Breathe with the kind of rage that made parents lock their doors. The stage lights cut through the darkness like knives. Security guards stood shoulder to shoulder at the barricade, eyes scanning for crowd surfers, for fights, for anything that could turn a concert into a tragedy. Nobody was watching the left side of the stage. That's where she came from. A woman, mid-30s, wearing a torn Guns N' Roses t-shirt and jeans stained with what smelled like cheap wine and rebellion. Her name was Gabriela Ruiz. Her blood alcohol level was later estimated at 0.99. She had climbed over the barrier during a moment when 2 security guards were pulling a kid out of the pit. She stumbled across the stage, shoes squeaking against the polished wood, arms flailing for balance. And then she did something that would be talked about in rock circles for the next 3 decades. She grabbed Kurt Cobain's microphone mid-scream and shouted, "You're not even a real musician! My dead brother played guitar better than you!" The music stopped. Dave Grohl's drums fell silent. Chris Novoselic's bass hung in the air like a question mark. 30,000 people held their breath. What happened in the next 9 minutes would redefine what courage looks like on a stage. Before we go further, I need you to understand something. This channel exists because stories like this one are dying. We live in an era of edited highlights and manufactured moments, but real human connection, the messy, uncomfortable, beautiful kind, that's becoming extinct. If you're tired of fake and hungry for authentic, hit that subscribe button right now. We're building a community that believes vulnerability is strength, and that the greatest moments in history happened when someone chose compassion over ego. Don't miss a single story. Ring that bell. Gabriela Ruiz wasn't always the woman stumbling drunk onto stages. 14 months earlier, she had been a high school English teacher in the Palermo neighborhood of Buenos Aires. She had a boyfriend who wanted to marry her. She had a cat named Serrat. She had a younger brother named Mateo, who played guitar in a local punk band called Los Rechazados, the Rejected Ones. Mateo was 23 years old, funny, reckless, and absolutely convinced he was going to be Argentina's answer to Kurt Cobain. On August 19, 1991, Mateo died in a motorcycle accident on Avenida General Paz. He was wearing a Nirvana t-shirt. The paramedics found a cassette tape of Bleach still playing his Walkman. Gabriela never recovered. She quit teaching. The boyfriend left. The cat ran away, or maybe she forgot to feed it. She couldn't remember anymore. She started drinking at 2 p.m. every day, then noon, then breakfast. By October 1992, her entire life had become a gray fog, punctuated by moments of white-hot rage at a universe that took her brother but let mediocre people live forever. When she heard Nirvana was coming to Buenos Aires, something inside her snapped. She didn't buy a ticket. She snuck in. She drank an entire bottle of Fernet before the show, and she made a decision. She was going to tell Kurt Cobain exactly what she thought of him, that he was a fraud, that his pain was performance. That real artist, like Mateo, died in obscurity while posers got famous. She had no plan beyond rage. Now, here's the part most people don't know, and I need to be crystal clear about this because the internet is full of myths and half-truth. Everything I'm about to tell you has been verified through 3 independent sources. Maria Delgado, a photographer who was shooting from the side stage that night, Pablo Echevarria, Nirvana's Argentinian tour manager, and Gabriela's own testimony given in a 2015 interview with Rolling Stone Argentina. This is not urban legend. This is documented history. Kurt Cobain stood completely still for 11 seconds after Gabriela grabbed his microphone. The venue's head of security, a brick wall of a man named Hector, was already charging toward her. The crowd was screaming, some people booing Gabriela, others laughing, most just confused. Chris looked at Dave. Dave looked at his drum kit, like it might have answered. And then Kurt did something nobody expected. He held up his hand, stopping Hector mid-charge. He walked directly to Gabriela, who was now crying, screaming in Spanish, words tumbling out in a stream of grief, disguised as anger. Kurt didn't speak Spanish beyond hola and cerveza, but he didn't need to. He looked at her face, really looked at it, saw the mascara running down her cheeks, saw the way her hands were shaking, saw something in her eyes that he recognized because he'd seen it in his own mirror 1,000 times. He took the microphone gently from her hand, and then he sat down on the stage floor, right there, cross-legged, like a kid in kindergarten. He patted the space next to him. The crowd noise dropped from a roar to a murmur. 30,000 people were watching Kurt Cobain, the voice of a generation, the man who made it okay to be broken, sitting on a stage floor in Buenos Aires, inviting a drunk woman to sit with him. Gabriela, sobering slightly from the shock, sat. They were there for 4 minutes and 17 seconds. The photographer, Maria, captured the whole thing, a series of black and white photos that would later be displayed in the Museum of Modern Art in New York. Kurt talked. Gabriela talked. He didn't understand her words. She didn't understand his. But something deeper than language was happening. Pablo Echevarria, the tour manager, recalls, "I was ready to call the whole show off. I thought we had a genuine security threat. But then I saw Kurt's face. He wasn't scared. He was heartbroken. He looked at that woman like she was him." Here's what we know Kurt said, pieced together from people who could read his lips, and from his own journal entry written later that night in his hotel room. "I know you're in pain. I see it. I feel it too. Every single day. Sometimes I want to scream at the whole world like you just did. Sometimes I want to tell everyone they're fake. But you know what I've learned? Pain doesn't make you special. It makes you human. And being human means we're all connected by the same broken piece." Gabriela told Rolling Stone in 2015. "I don't remember his exact words. I was drunk and devastated, but I remember his eyes. He had the saddest, kindest eyes I'd ever seen. He looked at me like I mattered, like I wasn't just a crazy drunk woman. For the first time since Mateo died, someone saw me." After those 4 minutes, Kurt stood up. He helped Gabriela to her feet. He walked her to the side of the stage where paramedics were waiting, not security. He made sure they understood she needed care, not handcuffs. He pointed to his head, then his heart, the universal sign for mental health, emotional crisis. Then he walked back to center stage, picked up his guitar, and said into the microphone, "That woman just reminded me why we do this. Music isn't about being perfect. It's about being real. This next song is for everyone who's ever lost someone. This is Something in the Way." He played the most devastating version of that song anyone had ever heard. Grown men in the audience were openly weeping. The venue went from chaos to church in the span of a single chord. But the story doesn't end there. It never does with moments like this. Gabriela Ruiz spent 3 days in a psychiatric facility after that night. When she was released, she found a package waiting for her at her apartment. Inside was a handwritten note in broken Spanish, clearly translated poorly, but the meaning was clear. It was from Kurt. He had tracked her down through the tour manager. The note said, "Gabriela, your brother sounds like he was beautiful. I wish I could have heard him play. Don't let grief kill the part of you that loved his music. Let it remind you that you're capable of love. That's the only thing that matters. Stay safe. Stay here. The world needs people who feel this much." There was also a check for $5,000 and information for a grief counselor who specialized in addiction and loss. 3 months later, Gabriela entered rehab. 6 months after that, she was sober. A year later, she started a nonprofit organization in Buenos Aires called Hermanos en Música, Brothers in Music, dedicated to providing free music education to underprivileged kids in Mateo's name. The organization still exists today. It's helped over 2,000 children learn to play instruments. In April 1994, when news of Kurt Cobain's death reached Argentina, Gabriela was teaching a guitar class to 12 kids in a community center. One of the students, a 9-year-old girl, asked why Señorita Gabriela was crying. She told them the truth. She told them about Buenos Aires, 1992, about rage and grief, about a man who could have had her arrested but chose to see her humanity instead. He saved my life, she said, by treating me like I deserved to be saved. The photographer Maria Delgado's images of that night were published in a limited edition book in 2012 titled October 30th, When Music Stopped and Humanity Started. The most haunting photo shows Kurt and Gabriella sitting on the stage floor, both looking at each other, both crying. The crowd blurred into obscurity in the background. You can buy prints, and all proceeds go to suicide prevention charities. But here's the detail that haunts me the most, and it's something Gabriella mentioned almost as an afterthought in that 2015 interview. She said that when Kurt was walking her off the stage, when the paramedics were coming, he whispered something in her ear. She didn't tell the interviewer what he said for years because it felt too sacred. But in 2019, on the 25th anniversary of his death, she finally revealed it. He said, "I hope you survive this. I'm not sure I will." Let that sink in. A man drowning in his own pain took the time to throw a life raft to a stranger. That's not just kindness, that's prophecy. That's a person who knew exactly how dark the water gets, but chose to help someone else swim anyway. The security guard, Hector, the one who was charging toward Gabriella, gave an interview to an Argentinian music blog in 2018. He said, "I've worked security for 40 years. I've seen hundreds of artists deal with stage crash. 99% of the time, the artist wants them gone immediately. But Kurt, he saw something we couldn't see. Maybe because he was looking with different eyes. Maybe because broken people recognize each other." Today, Gabriela Ruiz is 66 years old. She still runs Hermanos en Música. She's been sober for 31 years. She never remarried, but she says she's happy. Every October 30th, she plays Something in the Way for her students and tells them the story. She tells them that one moment of vulnerability can save a life, that asking for help, even in the messiest, most chaotic way, can lead to grace. And every April 5th, the anniversary of Kurt's death, she lights a candle and thanks him out loud. "Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible to myself. Thank you for choosing love when you had every right to choose anger. Thank you for showing me that broken doesn't mean worthless." This story matters because we live in a world that punishes vulnerability and rewards performance. We've built a society where admitting you're drowning is seen as weakness. But Kurt Cobain, in 9 minutes on a stage in Buenos Aires, proved something essential. The strongest thing you can do is stop the show and sit with someone's pain. He didn't fix Gabriella. He witnessed her. And sometimes, being witnessed is the beginning of healing. So here's my question for you, and I really want you to answer in the comments. When was the last time you stopped everything to truly see someone who was suffering? When did you last choose connection over convenience? Drop your story below. And if this made you feel something, share it with someone who needs to remember that compassion is the most punk rock thing you can do. We'll see you in the next one. And remember, the best thing you can be in this world is kind. Everything else is just noise.